came here today because I wanted to try and do something a wee bit different. I came across the story of a guy who I'm going to tell you about today, a guy called Zoran Mandlbaum. Probably not pronouncing his name right, but it doesn't matter. Now, I came across this story and it really sort of spoke to me a wee bit more. I don't know why it kind of got to me so much when I was reading about the guy, but it did, and so I thought, you know what, people need to know more about this. People in the West especially, who we don't really know much about people in the East, unfortunately. We really should know about guys like this. We all know about Oskar Schindler, we all know about people like that, but this guy was essentially the Oskar Schindler of Bosnia Herzegovina, the Oskar Schindler of Mostar even, I don't know how you would... But he deserves a bit of veneration, he deserves a bit of respect, and he deserves for his story to be known. Now, who was Zoran Mandlbaum, I hear you ask? Well, he was the leader of the Jewish community during the Bosnian War. Now, the Bosnian War is a strange war for countless reasons. One of the major reasons why it was a bit unusual from most wars is, for once, the Jews weren't the target as such. You know, it was Croatian Catholics, Serbian Orthodox and Bosniaks who are Muslim, and they were fighting amongst themselves. Now, this was a war of mass extermination, let's just be clear there. The Croats, from what I gather, essentially tried to wipe out as many Muslims as they possibly could, as did the Serbs. They were trying to ethnically cleanse them because they felt that this area should belong to Croatia. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, that's not why I'm here. I'm just here to tell you the story about this guy, a selfless human being, a brave individual as well, a guy who grew up hearing horrendous stories about the Holocaust. I mean, his mum's entire family were wiped out by the Nazis in the concentration camps. So when this guy seen what was happening to his Muslim neighbours and his Catholic neighbours, you know, there was fighting on both sides of course, but when he found out what was happening to his neighbours, as easy as it would have been for him to just say, okay, well, it's not my problem, I'm just going to stay at home and keep myself and my community safe. He didn't do that. There wasn't an option for this guy. He knew he had to help, and that was what he did. Now, he delivered food packages, clothing, medicines. He even managed to smuggle people between different parts of the city that they couldn't go to themselves. Lots of couples were able to be together. You know, if you can imagine, you're stuck on this side, your boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever is stuck on this side. You can't go and see them, you can't be together. You can't marry them, you can't have a family together. Well, Zoran helped those people. He managed to move them across enemy lines. One of the advantages of being Jewish at that point was you were able to move around relatively freely. Nobody was targeting you. And so he used this advantage, this rare advantage that Jews had at that time. He used this rare advantage. And he did it in a way that he knew he could help as many people as he possibly could. So he took foods, medicines and stuff like that to the doors, to people's houses and whatever else, but he also took them to the concentration camps that the Croats had set up. Now, these concentration camps were absolutely brutal, let's just be clear here. These are the sorts of places where you would be taken, you would be beaten, tortured, raped. There was a lot of rape going on as well, and murdered. A lot of people were murdered, to be completely honest. Tends to be the way with these places, unfortunately. So he took valuable necessities to these people to help as many human beings survive as he could. Now, he didn't need to do it, as I said. He could have just left it and said, right, not my issue, and just let them all kill each other. But that wasn't the nature of the man. He was a selfless human being, a human being who wanted to look after his neighbours. I know, crazy concept in today's world, right? You might actually do something that puts yourself in a little bit of danger or a little bit of inconvenience to help a stranger. Crazy thought, I know, but guys like Zoran Mandlbaum existed. Now, Zoran Mandlbaum was born in 1946. He was born just after World War II, and he grew up in Mostar, I believe. He was a native of Mostar, and not about to find a point on it, but there are people alive today purely because of the actions that man took. Purely because he was willing to sacrifice his own safety, because, you know, he wasn't in the line of fire at that point. But of course, when people realised what he was doing, some people weren't too happy about it. And in fact, the Croats planted a bomb under his car and tried to murder him. Did it stop him? No, of course it didn't. No, it just made him more determined. to look after as many strangers, as many of his neighbours as he possibly could. And if that doesn't say something about, if that's not an incredible human being, I don't know what is. Now, I've chose to stand at this place. I'm going to go somewhere else and show you in a wee minute. There's not very many Jewish sites left in this city, unfortunately. The reason I'm standing here with nothing behind me except a couple of container blocks and a wee white stone, there you can see it, yeah, there's my thumb touching it there, a wee white stone in the back. This is where the new Jewish synagogue was supposed to be built. Now that white foundation stone behind me was laid in 2001, and it was attended by the local imam, the local leader of the Catholic Church, the Croat Catholic Church. Well, they're predominantly Croats, I believe, here, and the Serbian Orthodox authorities as well as a few of the modern Jewish leaders. Now, it was late in 2001. Everybody was really happy. Let's build something for the Jewish community. They did so much to help other people during this time period. But then it didn't get off the ground. For some reason, that's the only thing that's been laid. That wee white stone is the only thing that's been laid so far, and then the project just didn't get going after that. I'm not entirely sure why. Probably some individual, I'm just going to stick to using that word so I don't swear, probably some individual decided they wanted to play politics with the situation, or they decided that the local Jewish community somehow weren't important enough or something like that. You know the way this thing goes with politicians. That's why I thought it was fitting to bring you here. So there it is. That's literally all they got built. So I'm standing now in front of what used to be the old synagogue here. The synagogue here was burned down by the Nazis, unfortunately, as so many synagogues in Europe were at the time. And later, the Jewish community tried to rebuild the synagogue, but they obviously didn't have as much money then, so they needed to take out a loan. So they took out the loan, they rebuilt the synagogue behind me, but unfortunately they defaulted on the loan, and the building behind me then was donated to the puppet museum. It's a bit of a strange one, I know, but it went from being a synagogue to a puppet museum. So I thought this might be quite a fitting place to sort of finish my video on Zoran Mandlbaum. Let's look at a couple of quick facts about the guy. I mentioned how his mum's entire family were wiped out by the Nazis. Both of his parents during the war were partisans, so they fought against the Nazis. They actively took part in the resistance against the Nazis. Maybe that's where he got his bravery from. Maybe his parents were really brave people as well, and they passed that on to their son, who then, as I mentioned, selflessly did what he needed to do to try and protect as many of his neighbours as possible. Another thing to mention about him as well, he was one of the last people to cross Stari Most, the old bridge. He was one of the very last people to cross that bridge before it was blown up by Croat paramilitaries. Which I think is quite fitting, because at the end of the day, he was the man who made the decision to try and build bridges in a city where others were determined to tear them down. So I never really know how to edit these videos. Normally I just stop talking and the video cuts off, but I thought no, that's not really the way to do this. So I think I'll let the man speak for himself. I think I'll quote the man, and I'll let his words do the talking that I have very inarticulately tried to do. I'm the kind of man who just wants to help. When I see an injustice being done to someone, I want that person to overcome it and feel better. I'm just an ordinary man willing to help.